Hey everyone, I'm gonna take a moment to explain a few things about Comet ISON to you. As you know, I've been posting a lot about it recently, mainly for the better part of this year. And I'm very excited about it, so let's get right into it. The first thing I want to talk about is Comet ISON was discovered September 21st of 2012, and the announcement of the discovery came on September 24th, 2012. It's an Oort cloud-based comet. The Oort cloud is one of two regions where comets come from. It's basically the home base of comets in the galaxy and in space. A long time ago, as the galaxy is in motion, stars tend to drift near the Oort cloud and can either pull or knock a comet out away from it, and that was the case with ISON. It's a first-time visitor to the solar system. It was believed that this event occurred 4.6 billion years ago. So roughly during the beginning stages of the solar system. And it's finally making its way in. And also, I'll talk about the second region in another more commonly known region of the original comets is called the Kuiper Belt. That's another densely populated region for comets. So that you have the Kuiper Belt and the Oort cloud. That's where your comets come from. Second, Comet ISON is classified as a sun grazer, meaning it will enter the sun's atmosphere at less than 1,000,000 miles. It'll come to within roughly 700 miles of the sun's surface in the sun's corona, which is the appropriate term for the sun's atmosphere, where it will be subjected to temperatures of up to 5,000 degrees, hot enough to melt iron. So it's definitely hot enough to melt ice. The sun is also during the peak of its solar max cycle right now, so it's emitting a lot of CMEs, coronal mass ejections, and those are huge huge flares that'll also play a role as to whether or not Comet ISON survives its perihelion on Thursday. It was actually just observed earlier today that the sun let out a massive CME, as displayed in this image here. This is from the SOHO observatory, the solar and heliospheric observatory that we have floating around in space, and obviously pointed at the sun. And they put a blocker on the sun because the sun would damage the sensor on the satellite, so it wouldn't see anything. It's just like looking at the sun yourself with your own eye. You can't do it, and neither can the equipment, so you have to block it out. And as you can see here, this is Comet ISON entering the frame on the right side of the image here. This just occurred today. And what I was talking about as far as the CME goes, this is a massive coronal mass ejection that the sun just happened to put out today. And this is a pretty big one. This is I don't think they said that it was directed at ISON, so I'm not sure if it's going to interact with it or not. And the other elements that the comet's going to have to deal with is not only the temperature, the radiation, and the intense gravitational pull of the sun, which will cause the nucleus to become elongated. It could cause the comet to break apart before it even makes it to the sun, or as it's going around, or shortly after. That's all a matter of waiting and seeing what happens. The solar winds from the coronal mass ejections tend to have an effect on the comet's tail. It can completely shear the tail off, but like a lizard, it would grow back within a matter of days due to the sublimation of the ice from the comet's nucleus. Comet ISON, or actually all comets typically have three features that makes up a comet's body: the nucleus, the coma, and the tail. The nucleus is usually not seen through regular observations due to the fact that it's always obscured by the coma. And the coma is the atmosphere of the comet itself. When the ice is melting from the heating of the sun, it sublimates into gas, and that's what you see as the fuzzy head of a comet. What creates the tail is, in part, the sublimation of the water, of the ice into gas, and also the dust that is emitted from the comet's nucleus as well. So comets typically have two tails, a gas tail and a dust tail. And typically with sun-grazing comets, their tails can become extremely long. Comet Lovejoy in 2011 had an extremely long tail, and also a comet Ignat from 2007, that one had an extremely long tail. However, I do not believe that was a sun grazer. I would have to double check on that. But comets with tails that long, their tail can usually span about 35 to 45 degrees across the sky. So that's what we're hoping will happen with ISON if it stays intact. You've heard me mention the term perihelion a lot in my posts and updates. Perihelion is an object's closest approach to the sun, and also an object's furthest distance from the sun is called aphelion. So just to clarify those terms, since I know I've used them a lot. I'm going to switch to the sky chart here real fast. This sky chart that you see, this is how observers would typically find Comet ISON in the sky, or any other object that they want to find in the night sky. You study your constellations and you learn how to star hop from constellation to constellation, or from star to star, to find the object you're looking for. This is the projected path of Comet ISON across the sky. This line you see going across here is the artificial horizon, so everything below this line right now is not visible. Here's the moon, and as you can see, it's very close to that line, so the moon will be rising here shortly, even though it's cloudy outside tonight, so I wouldn't be able to see it. Here's the comet nearing the sun, way on the other side of the Earth right now. Going back to our model here. Set this in motion. Now, as you notice with the comet, here's its tail as it's heading back out. I'll wait for the loop to reset. Alright, here's the comet coming in. If you notice, the comet's tail is always pointing away from the sun, and that's always going to happen. That's because of the solar winds blowing the dust and the gas in the opposite direction that the comet is traveling, or in opposition to the sun itself. You'll see in a lot of pictures where comets appear to be streaking across space, which typically is not the case. Sometimes it can be. They can be going in the direction that you think it's going, but there's also the possibility that it's not. So they could be moving up and down, they could be moving sideways. You just never know by looking at a picture. You can never be 100% sure by looking at a picture of a comet as to which direction it's traveling. And a good indicator of that is here. This is also a newly released loop from the stereo observer that we have near the sun. This is Comet ISON right here, and also another comet, Comet Encke, is coming across that way. You have Comet Encke coming across its path here, and Comet Encke is actually starting from way up here, and it's going to kind of curve across the Comet ISON's path, and at the end of the loop you'll see Encke's tail develop. I'm not sure how well you can see that from my camera's point of view, but Comet Encke's tail is actually forming and getting blown out in this direction. And here's ISON approaching the sun from its own orbit. So you have two comets near the sun traveling in opposite traveling on different paths, but yet their tails are pretty much facing in the same direction. So that's a good indicator it's a good example as to how a comet's tail always points away from the sun. And another interesting feature about the comet is that it's traveling on a different orbit, not as common to what most comets will travel on. Most comets travel on an elliptical orbit, along with the planets that you see orbiting the sun here in the model. And Comet ISON is on what's called a hyperbolic orbit. And given its trajectory, when a comet gets near the sun, it's going to pick up a lot of speed. It's projected that ISON will be traveling upwards of up to 845,000 miles an hour when it slingshots around the sun. And because of its orbit, it's on an ejection trajectory which will hurl it back out into space and out of the solar system. So it's a one-shot deal with Comet ISON, and the fact that it's also an Oort cloud comet is why it's created a lot of buzz, because we've never had an Oort cloud-based sun grazer before. So this is really pretty much a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to observe Comet ISON. Right now, since it's so close to the sun, it's lost in the glare for ground-based observation. And so we have to wait and hope that it survives its perihelion pass on Thursday at 1:44 p.m. Eastern Time. And hopefully we'll all be in for a good show starting next week in the pre-dawn sky and also in the evening sky, and eventually it will become an all-night object. As it continues to head back out into space, it will also fade. Comet ISON is only about a mile wide, I believe it was mentioned, which is pretty much the standard for a sun grazer. That's one of the key requirements for a sun grazer to survive its pass. It's got to be fairly large enough, because as it gets near the sun, a lot of the material from the nucleus is going to get burned away from the sun's heat. And so if the comet isn't large enough, and if it's not densely packed enough, there's a good chance it'll break apart and disintegrate before it makes it around the sun. A really good example of an exceptionally large comet was Comet Hale-Bopp, which was roughly the size of Mount Everest. So that was a big boy. That one didn't get anywhere near the sun when it came by in 1997. I'm pretty sure a lot of you may remember when that one was around. That was a pretty memorable comet for a lot of people. And we're hoping Comet ISON will be just as spectacular, if not better. It's just a wait and see game, and if it makes it around, and if we get our show for next month, I'll do my best to capture a lot of images of it. And that's basically it. If you sat through all of this, thank you. I hope I was able to shine some light on what I've been doing and what I've been following for the last, I don't know, 10, 12 months almost. So that's Comet ISON for you. Its official name is C2012S1 Comet ISON. So, thank you for watching, and hopefully it survives, and we'll all be able to have a really fond memory of the comet.